actual title of the group that he was dealing with was the Office of Secret Investigation. He says there's also a new pattern or a form of intelligence called human intelligence, in which it is people, they investigate the humans, that is, the government. I mentioned to him that in the clear intent that it said that he was under surveillance, and that happens to be an error. That information comes from somewhere else. But he picked that up quickly, saying, I know that I'm being under surveillance. He said that they had set up a site across the street from his house with computers and recorders. A girl rented the house, and he had a detective look into this and found that she was operating under an assumed name and that she had no social security number. He has photographs of people coming and going with NORAD license plates, Air Force, the Air Force Weapons Lab. He thinks that the NSA is orchestrating this. On an entirely separate subject, he said he thinks that this whole operation and UFO-based details is classified higher than the president. In other words, he thinks that the president doesn't know about this. He's also concerned that there are two levels of security involved. One, Project Aquarius, which is, I think we've learned, is top secret, and then another one higher than that, where the people in charge of the higher level information having these new vehicles could simply take over the government. He called the Air Force Intelligence Headquarters in Washington. No, he didn't say in Washington, but that was the idea. And the commanding officer was not present, but he talked to the captain, who was the adjutant or deputy, and just started talking. Said, I know this, and all these facts, and this, and what do you think about that? The captain said, just write us a report and tell us what we should do. So he prepared a 20-page report, and Edwards saw it, and he forwarded it by Federal Express, and also a copy to the White House in a double envelope, indicating that sensitive material was on the inner envelope. Edwards got a call from Colonel Smith, who was the White House liaison, to inquire about who this Bennewitz fellow was, and Edwards gave a positive report. The White House was extremely interested and issued orders to get on with it, to do something, assuring Edwards that Bennewitz would receive a letter within 2 weeks. Such a letter was never received. Finally, Colonel Smith from the Air Force Secretary sent him a letter eventually, just pursuing the old party line. It said that he should not be troubling the headquarters of the Air Force and not troubling the executive office of the White House with all of this stuff. Bennewitz showed this letter to Edwards, who blew up and called Smith. He got an answer that the Air Force was not interested and knows nothing about it. On another point, referencing the Stigmata article, where the farmer thought that the two humanoids may have been naked. In the case which he is dealing with the woman and the son, the boy, upon being questioned, laughed, and he said they had no fronts or behinds. I asked, no sexual organs, and he said, yes, no organs at all. He said that he has received information concerning a high metabolism rate of the creatures, even bird-like. One of the witnesses, I think the woman who was being taken by hand, said that the hands of the creature was red hot. And he guesses that it must have been 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Repeat, the creatures cannot stand uncontrolled environments. And they wear their suits for protection against excessive heat. They are fed by a formula, and if they are short of that intake, they will turn green. The heart is on the right side, and they have one lung. The elimination is through the skin. The creatures are very strong. He seems to have very limited knowledge of the literature and the organizations working on UFOs. I promised to stir up a copy of my book to send to him, also a personal resume to give him an idea of my background, and copies of one or more of my papers. I asked about his reaction to the summary of the UFO fields, which I had deduced and relayed to him in the first call, and he thinks that I'm probably right. He said that the UFOs can be detected by radar detectors, and that they also trigger the highway patrol radar or police radar guns. His friend Valdez, and his suggestion was looking for a water intake to the site, and within about a mile and a half he came upon a flying saucer at a distance of 300 feet. The Indians in the area are quite scared. They are very superstitious, and 90% of them have moved into town. The chief of police told him about an experience he had. A tribal chief had gone deer hunting on a mesa south of Dulce. And 2 days went by, and he did not return, and a search party was sent out. In the daylight on the mesa, a ship popped up from down below and came up above the edge of the mesa and landed, and two guys, these were humans, kicked the tribal chief to the ground, and then they got in the ship and disappeared. He had been hunting, and he fell and had a broken leg, and he was picked up by these human people in the craft. They were blacks. Very specifically, they were Negro humans. He discussed something about some devices called sphericals that are optical and sound, apparently remotely control little vehicles, which are spheres from 1.5 inches to 12 inches in diameter. We discussed weapons that are used by aliens and whether or not they're used to paralyze people. He said yes, and they are. They consist of a cube about 2 inches on the side called a lens, hung around the neck, and emits a beam. Another on the ship produces a blue light that he has seen. It comes from a device about 7 inches high and 14 inches long with grid black lines on it. The color produced is a very light blue, which is like ionized oxygen. He has not sought publicity on any of this. He is interested only in getting the facts out. He did not object to the idea that I would send a copy of our telephone conversation tape to Tom Adams when I told him about my plan. He had received a call from a William Allen from Seattle concerning an English publication and the Kirtland Air Force Base case. I just told him that the Bill Allen I know of, and if it's the same one, then it's a good contact. As I've become well acquainted with Bill Allen at the 1983 MUFON Symposium in Pasadena. The English publication seemed to be the Flying Saucer Review, which I assured Paul was the leading publication of its kind in the world. So there's some more information that we can put into the equation of Paul Bennewitz, and it is indeed a puzzling situation. I continue to get a reassurance that the guy is completely on the level, and that what he has to say should be taken seriously enough to look into it in great detail without being overly skeptical at the outset.
That concludes the tape recording I received from Jim McCampbell. Today is July 27th, 1984. The time is 12:30 in the afternoon. This concludes this tape.